and talk about Eric Decker to the Jets. And this guy, I mean, last year he put up great numbers. And the question that is burning in everybody's mind, I think, is that because he was a product of Peyton Manning, or can Eric Decker actually put up some decent wide receiver numbers? And I think Jim's probably got a pretty good insight on what's going on over there.
Yeah, here's my insight. This whole next section is brought to you by PBR. They're a proud sponsor of you, me, and Eric Decker, because that's what he did. He sold out for some money because he was a product of a system. He had Peyton Manning throwing to him. Why? Why would you go to the Jets? Stupid. Stupid. Anyways, can you thrive as a number one option? No. You now play for the Jets. Welcome. Rex Ryan is your coach, which means you have more drama than your actual reality TV show. Boom. Sorry. This sucks for you, man. So you're going to see roughly, here's my take on it in legitimate facts, you're going to see 3 to 4 actually good passes in your direction that are catchable. And that was even when Peyton was thrown to him. Somehow Decker always managed to drop at least one or just fall on the field for no apparent reason. That's not good. If you're going to be the number one option in this offense when you're just not going to get that many looks and you're going to get a lot of looks, but is the ball going to be catchable? I don't know. It's probably going to be 20 feet above you, being thrown out of bounds. He does have some value for a goal line catch. Yeah. He still has some value because, you know what? He's tall, he's large, and in charge, maybe in his pants, according to his wife. But his yards after catch will go down. He's, again, product of the system, and it's a completely different situation. With that, Rob, I'm going to let it go to you.
Yeah, according to his wife, that's why he fell twice in the open field for no apparent reason, was because of that appendage down south. So good for him. Good stuff there. I'm going to have to disagree with the Jimmer here, not just because that's part of the show, but I'm kind of thinking I probably do a little bit anyway. So let's talk about Eric Decker, what the guy did last year and the year before. So the past 2 years combined, we'll get to Tebow here in a second. So Decker had over almost 2,400 yards, 172 receptions, and 24 touchdowns over those past 2 years. And yes, that was Peyton Manning. And no, I do not expect Decker to have the sort of numbers like that the next 2 seasons in there with New York with, whomever's throwing the ball, Vic or whatnot. But that being said, I have a little bit more, I think, respect for Decker and his athletic ability and so forth. So what I wanted to do here was kind of not, take Peyton out of the picture because, of how, awesome that guy is, go Broncos. But kind of compare what Decker did when Tim Tebow, of all people, were in the mix. So I looked back at 2011, Tim Tebow, and kind of compared that to Michael Vick, who I believe is going to be the starter and throwing the ball to Decker here in New York in 2014. So in 2011, Vick had over 100 more passing attempts that year. He had more than 1,000 more passing yards. He had 4 more passing touchdowns, and he threw for like 15% higher completion rate over those 13 games in 2011. So I say all that to say, Vic is a better quarterback, than Tim Tebow was, and I think Decker can put up some numbers, of course, not as high as the last couple years with Manning, but I think he can put up pretty solid numbers. I think he can put in low-end RB2 numbers. And so to look at that, I don't think it's unreasonable for a guy, especially of his size, as Jimmer mentioned in the red zone. He's a big threat at 6'3", 203 pounds. We showed that the last couple years, even with Peyton throwing him the ball, of course. But I can see him easily putting up 65 receptions, 850 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think with the volume that he's going to get as the number one wide receiver in New York, he can easily attain those numbers. I don't think that's too much to ask for. And those numbers I just spouted off was actually, Wes Welker's numbers last year. And yeah, Wes missed a few games, but at the end of the day, it's about points and what can he do for your fantasy team. So if he puts up those numbers, those translate to him being the number 20 wide receiver in fantasy last season. So that puts him at a wide receiver low end 2 for us. I think he can absolutely do that in New York, if nothing else, because of the volume that he's going to get there. Jay, you have any thoughts on Decker?
I'm gonna have to go with the Jimmer's point of view on this one.
Well, you do hate the Jets.
I do hate the Jets, and as bad as Tim Tebow is, I don't know if he's as bad as Geno Smith is. Vic can probably get him the ball, but I just don't see him getting anywhere near those numbers. I mean, you mentioned the whole Welker thing, and one of you Denver fans here might be able to shed light on how many games, but I know Welker missed like at least 3 or 4 games this year. So, saying that he put up, the 20th wide receiver in fantasy numbers, that's you're comparing him to Welker, which you're actually comparing him to the number 20 wide receiver and not to Welker, because if Welker plays all the games, he's not the number 20, he's more like the number 15 or something like that. But yeah, I think Eric Decker might be a flex at best this year. I just don't see it. What do you think, Jim?
I think a lot of things. I'm thinking.
On our next show, we're going to be breaking down and tiering the top 20 fantasy running backs for 2014 and comparing our rankings and tiers to the current ADP from Fantasy Football Calculator. So tune in next 2 weeks from now to see how we match up with their numbers. We'll also be sharing our thoughts on the first round of the NFL draft. So, does Johnny Manziel go to the Browns? Does Clowney end up going over, number 1 to the Texans? Tune in to find out, in the fantasy scenarios from which they find themselves on those teams, the ramifications. We're going to be live every 2 weeks here in the off season moving forward. We're going to go back to once a week here as the season gets closer. So tune in on Friday, May 9th for our next live hangout. In the meantime, check out our previous shows on our YouTube channel, Red Zone Warriors Fantasy Football Show. Like us on Facebook at Red Zone Warriors Fantasy Football Show, and follow and tweet us your fantasy football questions on Twitter at Red Zone Warriors. So for the Cushman, the Jimmer, I am Rob Shiva Winter Smith. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next time. Peace.
I gotta go tinkle.